In this video, I'll be going over some of the findings from my paper on what is evaluation and how it differs from research. But first, a little bit about me. My name is Dana Wanzer. I'm an assistant professor of psychology here at the University of Wisconsin-Stout, where I teach evaluation to graduate students in our MS in Applied Psychology program. I also teach some statistics and research methods courses as well. I primarily have a background doing evaluation with youth programs, and I also do a lot of research on evaluation, which today's paper is an example of research on evaluation. This is the paper I'll be going over today, published in the American Journal of Evaluation. I encourage you to read the paper if you have not already done so to find out more about the literature background, methods, more detailed findings than what I'll be covering today, and other discussion points. The main purpose of this paper was to answer two main questions. How do evaluators and researchers define evaluation, and how do they differentiate evaluation from research? So first, I'd like you to just think to yourself for a moment, and feel free to pause the video at any point to think more fully on these questions, because I'm just going to go straight into it. But think to yourself, how would you define program evaluation? What is the definition that you would use if you were explaining evaluation to somebody else? So I asked participants in my study this exact question and gave them a text box to answer, and then I coded their responses. And what I found is that most participants believed evaluation was about providing a value judgment. About 84% of participants said evaluation was about this value and component that is really kind of core to the word evaluation itself. About half also mentioned some aspect of the methodology of evaluation, or to say it's about systematic inquiry, or to mention specific methodologies like RCTs, randomized control trials, quasi-experimentals, or other similar studies intended to determine causal effects. Only about a third of participants described evaluation for learning, program improvement, or decision-making processes. However, evaluators were more likely to describe evaluation this way, with about 39% of evaluators describing the purpose of evaluation for learning, decision-making, and so on, compared to only 24% of researchers. Evaluators and researchers were equally likely, but not very common, to mention that it was about examining processes or outcomes. But evaluators were more likely to emphasize the participation of stakeholders in the process compared to researchers, 11% compared to 6%, whereas researchers were more likely, about twice as likely, to say evaluation is applied research compared to evaluators. So with that last component, I'd like you to then also think to yourself, and again, pause after these two questions if you'd like to think more on these questions. First, how, if at all, do you differentiate program evaluation from social science research? And in what ways are they similar and different? Again, I asked participants these same questions, and I coded those. You can find out more in my paper. But I will show you some of the diagrams I then asked them to compare their responses to, because there's maybe 5 ways we could think about the relationship between evaluation and research. And this comes from Matheson's 2008 book chapter. First, we might think of it kind of like this, as a Venn diagram, that there are unique components to both research and evaluation, and that they also overlap in some areas, most notably like methods or design, statistical analysis, or qualitative analysis. That might be kind of more of the overlapping social science methodologies that would overlap between these two. Similarly, we might think of it more as a continuum, with various aspects of the applied study being more evaluation-like or more research-like. Some also think of evaluation more like this, that it is kind of a method in the researcher's toolbox. It is a method, it's an approach, but there's nothing unique about evaluation. It's just one type of way we can approach research. Similarly, some people don't even see a distinction between the two and think of research and evaluation as one and the same. That this kind of comes across a lot when a lot of people say evaluation is just applied research. And then we also might think of it this way, and this kind of advocates for the alpha discipline, transdiscipline that Scriven advocates our field as, in that evaluation is kind of the larger field that informs research. And so evaluation has those unique aspects, and research is just kind of like a method or something that uses evaluation. And so I want you to think about these 5 and think to yourself, Which of the following best matches your description of how, if at all, evaluation differs from research? So once I asked participants to describe for themselves, like what is how would they differentiate the two of them, I presented them these 5 different ways of thinking about it and asked them in what ways, which one best matched their kind of description that they had qualitatively provided earlier. And so I asked them to just pick which one best resonated with them and their definition and the way they saw the distinction. And so most participants thought that evaluation and research intersected. So about half of participants. Only a third thought evaluation was kind of a method, a type of research, a subcomponent of research. 11% thought of it more of a continuum. 4% thought of it as evaluation as kind of the larger component. And then only 2%, sorry, my little face is in the way right there, only 2% thought research and evaluation were one and the same. But when we compared evaluators and researchers, we found that evaluators were more likely to believe that they intersected, that there are unique components to evaluation compared to research, whereas researchers were more likely to believe that evaluation is a subcomponent of research compared to evaluators. So this suggests that evaluators see more distinctiveness between evaluation and research than do researchers. And the last part of my study was to ask people, in what ways do you believe research and evaluation differ? And I asked on a scale of do not differ, differ somewhat, and differ greatly. So just a 3-point scale. And I asked them for all of these different areas. And so the percentage of people, I'm going to show you the ones that most people thought that they differed greatly. So at least a third of participants thought that they differed greatly in these bolded areas: the purpose of the study, the audience of the study, the generalization, dissemination of results, providing recommendations, providing those value judgments, as well as politics. And then I compared these percentages also between evaluators and researchers, and I found that more evaluators thought that these highlighted aspects differed greatly compared to researchers. So that evaluators are seeing greater differences in these areas than do researchers. So they saw greater differences than researchers in the areas of purpose, participant involvement, disseminating results, as well as those valuing judgments. So overall, what did I find? Most of participants agreed that evaluation is about value judgments or methods, but 40% of evaluators also think it's about decision-making compared to only 24% of researchers. Evaluators tend to think evaluation and research overlap, and evaluation has this unique component, whereas researchers tend to think of evaluation as a subcomponent of research. Evaluation differs most from research in its purpose, recommendations, dissemination, generalization, and audience. And evaluators think evaluation and research differ more greatly than do researchers. So I'll just end you with this quote by John Gargani in his 2016 American Evaluation Association presidential address, in which he said that evaluation is the largest profession that no one's ever heard of. And I'm just hoping with research like this that it's just for now. Materials and preprint of the paper are available on the Open Science Framework at this link, and you are also more than happy to email me, dana@danawanser.com, for more information, or to tweet me on Twitter @DanaWanser. Thank you so much.